The Versal extent, interversal, relating to a single verse extent system and its natural regress satellites, pockets verse, occurring or situated within a verse system. Extraversal, relating to versal extent and their natural satellites, pocket verse, within a single shared universal extent, occurring between versal extent and their natural satellites, pocket verses, within a shared pocket universe, universal extent. Introduction. The verse is the observable universe. In the context of My02cent multiverse cosmology, our universe or the cosmos is the foundation of our observable reality. Most of our universe or cosmos is stated to be physical beyond the limitation of our natural bodies in the context that we can never know nor can we ever experience the full extent, not just as individuals but as species. There are aspects of the physical reality wherein we exist that humanity will never expand into. It is beyond improbable and emerged into the spectrum of impossibility. In this way, the observable universe is an aspect of the whole universe. Within My02cent multiverse cosmology, the two terms are separate regresses, but together give rise to the whole universal extent as an emergent property. Versal filament extent. The extraversal extent and interversal medium. The extraversal scale describes the smallest quanta of the whole universe. The extraversal scale is an extent comprised of a regress of correlative verses and their extraverse scale interaction. In the context of this body of work, this is the ground state where within the mundane being is able to transcend to become a type 5.99 citizen and give rise to extra-versal civilization. At the beginning of the cosmological birth of the universe until the end at the cosmological death of the universe, the vast filament extent is naturally occurring physically impossible extent where within a verse citizen is forever imprisoned. This is the full correlative extent of the whole ontology that the mundane is able to directly observe, know, and experience. Beyond this, as a regress, lies the whole universe and the ambition of the universal scale citizen. The extraverse extent is a ground state medium vacuum density. These values can differ from each correlative extraversal extent. However, at its lowest value, we describe the ground state of the interversal medium. The medium separates the large-scale extent of the verse, which is also the observable universe. The verse is defined by its density having a ground state which is of many orders of magnitude higher than the ground states of the interversal medium. The particle shell, the Hubble shell, and the cosmic shell. The verse is the encompassing extent of the particle shell, the Hubble shell, and the cosmic shell. The verse has three boundaries: the particle shell, the Hubble shell, and the cosmic shell. As the verse expands, the locality of space being infinite seems to grow at a rate that exceeds the speed of light, while the conserved matter and energy fade, becoming less and less dense. Beyond the Hubble shell, matter thin and evaporates, becoming extraversal. Within the particle shell, the universe can be observed but not directly experienced. Faster than light technology is not sufficient to outspace the expansion of the verse's particle shell. Instead, an extra-dimensional drive is required with extraversal ship are needed. Each verse is a child regress within the apparent universe extent, whereas the matter and energy within a verse give the verse density and provide the vacuum within its fundamental laws and constants. The extraversal medium is dominated by a force vacuum inheriting an average density for the universal extent, giving rise to the ground state within the universe. An extraversal field is required for universal vehicles and vessels. Leaving the verse is like an aquatic creature leaving the water. The fundamental forces within a verse are extremes that gives rise to galaxy filaments. Outside the verse, the fundamental forces are force, even considered negative. The locality is being compressed as each verse expands. The strong and weak nuclear forces are not constant. They fluctuate as extra-versal interactions. Within the verse, the constant forces are weak, but matter is much more abundant. Outside and beyond the verse, the constant forces are order of magnitude stronger. Matter is all but not present. The quantum evaporated, turning into a fundamental force that governs and mediates at the verse scale. The nuclear force within the verse is replaced with the cosmological constant forces of the universal outside the verse. External galactic cluster regress. External galactic cluster is a group of medial galactic clusters. It is an encompassing extent comprised of a medial galactic cluster regresses and their inter-external galactic cluster interactions. Medial galactic cluster regress. Medial galactic cluster is a group of interior galactic cluster. It is an encompassing extent comprised of an interior galactic cluster regress and their intermediate galactic cluster regress and their intermediate galactic cluster interactions. Interior galactic cluster regress. Interior galactic cluster is a group of galactic cluster. It is an encompassing extent comprised of a galactic cluster's regress and their intermediate galactic cluster regress and their interior galactic cluster interactions. Galactic cluster filament regress. A galactic cluster is a group of the gallery. It is an encompassing extent comprised of a galactic system regress and their intergalactic cluster filament regress and their intergalactic cluster filament interactions. Diverse extent. The mythological creation of the Versal extent. In classic mythology, the verse is the domain of the Olympians, deities, gods, and goddesses. They persisted the notion of divine creator, deity, gods, and goddesses. In the context of My02cent, creator, gods, and goddesses, in essence, were responsible for creating the verse. Within its stability, their creations could be brought into being, and where within its ontology they could inherit their being and extend and exist. In this context, every creation mythology describes a primordial ontology out of which and where within their verse is brought into being. The ordered verse is the regress of the primordial extent. The empirical cosmology of the Versal extent. 1 times 10 raised to the powers of 31 to 1 times 10 raised to the powers of 60. The Versal ontology is between 1 times 10 raised to the powers of 31 to the 1 times 10 raised to the powers of 60 meters in volume, defined as a regress. While rare, it is possible for a single being to embody as a standard of units of measurement less than 1 times 10 raised to the powers of 60 meters. If a single being's standard units of measurement exceed this, they will manifest as the universe. At the smallest of scale, a single Versal being would embody 1 times 10 raised to the powers of 31 meters in volume. If a single being's standard unit of measurement is less than or smaller than this, then they would manifest as the galaxy. The verse is the full extent of a galaxy regress. Empirically, a galaxy is 1/32nd scale of the whole universe. When you consider the full extent of a galaxy and its galactic influence, which can be 10 times, 100,000 times the largest galaxy, which an average ought to be 1 million, ought to be millions. The My02cent multiverse cosmology of the Versal extent. At the Versal scale extent, the verse has the consistency of foam, but instead of a mass of small bubbles formed on or in liquid, typically by agitation or segmentation, we have vast pockets of hard, empty vacuum surrounded by or segmented between the warm, hot intergalactic medium at the maximum distance of galactic scale interaction. In essence, a planetary nebula is a type of emission nebula consisting of an expanding glowing shell of ionized gas ejected from red giant stars late in their lives with a stellar remnant at its center. If we consider this process for a moment, what we have is a density of matter being ejected, atmospherical in every direction. Given enough time and enough space, ultimately, the center of this ejection will no longer have any mass or matter, and the process will form a hard vacuum. If we imagine two such emission nebulas in close proximity next to each other, we can describe the same process while considering what will occur at the common center between the two emission nebula. As the individual common center of mass density within the nebulas is ejected outward and slowly reaches zero density and forms a hard vacuum. The common center of locality between the two emission nebula has its density increased by the inflow of matter and energy from the emission nebula. If there are sufficient mass density, new stellar objects may form and become the foundation of future emission nebula. At the Versal scale, this simple process gives rise to the Versal filament and the Versal voids, which are the regress of the particle, Hubble, and cosmic shells. The Versal citizen. The mythology of the Versal citizen. Within a verse, a scale culture mythology would be limited to the imagination of interdimensional reality. The relativistic nature of the observable universe would make nature knowable to every individual citizen, while its true mythology applies to divine beings. Any paranormal entity would have been encountered and studied empirically. Magic in any form would be knowable at the adolescent age. Beings of superior natural talents and abilities, while in of themselves embodying forces nature, would be empirically understood, or their nature inferred by their interaction through the physicality of the relativistic verse. The quality which inspires awe in the superior being is supported on a foundation of ignorance and the incomprehensible. For the Versal scale citizen, all that would remain to inspire both awe and fear is the unknown ontology of alternate, extra, and parallel verses. Inherent in this would be the mythology of cosmological veil, out of which ancient beings could emerge from beyond. For the Versal scale citizen, the cosmological veil is an event horizon of the largest scale, beyond which there is no relativistic escape. The cosmic veil is governed by fundamental forces which can only be described and defined by extra-dimensional mechanics and dynamics. The pre-extra-dimensional Versal scale society would perceive this level of understanding, reasoning, and comprehension as preternatural or supernatural. Only those otherworldly beings from beyond the relativistic cosmic veil wielding phenomenon beyond even the comprehension of the very technology that has made the gods themselves antiquated and obsolete, which inspires curiosity and the absolute dread associated with the helplessness of not known being, uncertain, and of the greatest fear. Being without a truthful answer is the stuff of nightmare within the mythology of the Versal scale citizen. The empirical Versal citizen. The empirical Versal citizen is correlative. The extent of the verse is a cosmological event horizon beyond which lies the rest of the knowable universe. It is a threshold that cannot be traversed without extra-nautical logistics and infrastructure. In this way, the verses is an ontology scale within the universe order of magnitude above the galactic. Astrological technology, to include reaction mass, STL and FTL, drives are all co-relativistic tech. This term describes technology that operates within a unified space-time. As galactic scale, technological, logistic, and infrastructure scale to the full extent of the verse, the conciseness of the knowability of the relativistic nature of the verse can be known as if not an absolute impossibility will give rise to the extra-nautical. To be clear, Extra-nautical logistic and infrastructure is a driving force of the Verse citizen and the Verse civilization. The My02cent multiverse cosmological Verse citizen. The Verse is an ontology of the contrasting encompassing extent beyond the regress of galaxies. The monotheistic God is all-powerful, all-knowing, and present everywhere within a verse. A verse is an extent where infinite, alternate, or parallel galaxies exist. These galaxies, to include verses, are equated to being divine entities inheriting from their nature the maternal attributes of goddesses. The ontology of a galaxy forms the foundation for the pantheon of polytheism. They are all siblings, sisters, and daughters of their maternal parent ontology verses. Where an ontological galaxy is a place, a divine Versal being governed by Versal divinity is known as Versal being androgynous gods paternal or goddesses maternal. Their nature is alternate and parallel to the ontological galaxy. Within the context of My02cent, the Verse citizen marks the end of the mundane being. This body of work was always intended to explore being which could exist at each scale of each civilization. Allegoric to ant colony on Earth comprised of millions of individuals, while only existing within colony which can be measured in meters. Imagining sentient sapiens at the micro scale building reaction mass technology to travel beyond the Earth to the full extent of colonizing the entire galaxy is allegoric to what the mundane scale is doing in the context of colonizing the entire verse. It is not impossible to conceive the notion of a mundane scale citizen expanding throughout the full extent of a galaxy, or even beyond throughout the local group. However, the suspension of disbelief breaks down at this scale. The mundane scale citizen building civilization at the verse scale is incomprehensible. Therefore, a true verse scale citizen is no longer adequately analogized nor embodied within the notion of the mundane. Even if we utilize the premise of a mundane scale citizen operation at the verse scale, this is allegorical to use imagining an extragalactic empire of sentient sapient ants. The verse citizen within the limitation of their correlativistic existence is uber beings. These possess an infinite lifespan and are near invulnerable even if they are mortal. They are beyond mortal destruction. Their access to knowledge is unlimited and their ability to learn all things has no bounds. They are as ageless as the idea of existence, while capable of infinite growth and change. Their being, when operating at the mundane scale, if they choose to, is absolutely divine, possessing physical strength at the power scale equal to the galactic during their infancy. They themselves, as a community, are comparable to a local galactic group. They are also omnipresent, able to be anywhere at a moment's notice. However, their relativistic nature slows their temporal awareness. The core or center of their being, their soul, for a lack of a better term, does not experience all things instantly. Instead, it's subject to time dilation or lag gaining experience as an expression of life or living. The 5.0 to 5.99 Versal civilization. The mythology of the Versal civilization. The religion of the verse citizen will center around the monotheistic being beyond the cosmic veil, protecting the infrastructure of their civilization from extraversal forces, and polytheistic beings residing inside the verse near the threshold of the veil, watching over them, favoring them, and answering their prayer. It would be a manifestation of the universal awe and fear of the cosmological veil. It is analogies to the reasoning that the mundane sentient sapiens worship deities inspired by the awe-inspiring presence of the cosmos. Simultaneously, sentient sapient ants who lack the cognition to imagine the true scale of the cosmos worship the presence of the mundane entities for favors. For the galactic scale citizen and below, the verse scale citizen is truly God's in its most tangible form. The verse scale citizen is uber mundane, worshipped by the limited cognition of the galactic scale citizen and below. Yet the nature of existing within an omnipresent society as a transcendent being provides an emotional awareness of the infinity that still allows room for fear, anxiety, depression, etc., not of the knowable aspect of the known verse and its physical laws and constant, or of the predictability of the events which can be known, but instead of fear inducing a sense of powerless of all that may exist beyond the control of a perfect type 5.99 verse scale civilization. The empirical Versal civilization. The verse scale civilization exists at the most extreme end of what is empirically practical. The technological, logistic, and infrastructure would be beyond the limits of relativistic space and time. A verse scale society like its verse scale citizens will be omnipresent in nature and scope. Causality would only exist as a remnant of antiquated subjective mind, manifesting as the most extreme ends of the spectrum of what is physically impossible based on mastery of the physical world. For the mundane, the ecology or the economy emerges as a property of the interaction between the various kinds of mundane beings. At the verse scale, the verse citizen, the verse ecology, and the verse economy embody sentient sapiens. The My02cent multiverse cosmological verse civilization. The verse scale citizen is a boundless entity with no true physical form. Their civilizations share in this likeness. It is an expression of the technological logistics and infrastructure out of which verse scale citizens and their civilization emerge at the verse scale. The verse scale civilization, like its citizen, is boundless and infinite. The vast spatial and temporal distances have been bridged by locality and causality violation mechanics and logistics, giving physical reality a disjointed virtual presence and feel within limits. At the star and within the lowest of scale for a type 5.0 verse scale civilization to beings that have transcended being finite, existing at the scale of indefinite, infinite, the verse shaped by the presence of the cosmic veil will ultimately begin to feel claustrophobic to the verse scale civilization and its citizen. The cosmic veil will inspire both fear and bravery, and the pre-type 5.0 civilization will ultimately develop the technology, logistics, and infrastructure to transcend the cosmic veil, developing extra-nautical technology, logistics, and infrastructure, and thus become post-type 5.0 civilization as the indigenous inhabitants of their verse extent expand outward beyond the cosmic veil into the inter-universal medium. Glossary of terms. A pocket dimension is a small satellite dimension directly influenced by its parent dimension separated by the medium of a higher dimensional extent. A pocket verse is a small satellite verse directly influenced by its parent verse separated by the medium of the universal extent. A pocket universe is a small satellite universe directly influenced by its parent verse separated by the medium of multiverse extent. A pocket multiverse is a small satellite multiverse directly influenced by its parent multiverse separated by the medium of omniverse extent. A pocket omniverse is a small satellite multiverse directly influenced by its parent omniverse separated by the medium of omni-existence extent. A pocket omni-existence is a small satellite multiverse directly influenced by its parent omni-existence separated by the medium of infinite indefinity. In My02cent comics, the contest of the mother gods In My02cent comics, the contest of the mother goddess system Pocket's omni-existence manifests as an extent known as the realm cloud. It is the mixing of omniverse from the mother goddess system and the elemental realm.